Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India. Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Namaste. In this session, we are going to discuss role of human resource management in managing downsizing, safety and mental health. So, after this session, we hope that participants should be able to examine the role of HRM during the tough decisions of downsizing. They should be able to recognize the role of HRM function in managing employee safety and interpret the emerging role of HRM in the managing health of employee, particularly mental health. If we need to understand different approaches of HRM in downsizing, we must understand that downsizing can happen in two ways: proactive downsizing and reactive downsizing. In the proactive downsizing, organizations ask the question that what do we need to do to thrive in the future. So, generally the mechanization, automation or currently the digitization, these are the reasons for the proactive downsizing of the employees. Simply downsizing meaning decreasing the number of headcounts in the organization. Reactive downsizing happens because of some market challenge, change in the competitive scenario or change in a major regulation, and because of that many times organizations have to ask people to leave. So, downsizing can be of two types: proactive and reactive. Similarly, organizations can adopt different management approaches. What are those approaches? In a very broad sense, these are classified as control oriented approach and commitment oriented approach. Control oriented approach of people management is reflected in organizations policy, where primarily decisions are made based on the economic logic, financial logic. So, primary performance drivers are financial incentives, extensive use of the external consultants. The major criteria for performance are also based on efficiency, profitability, etc. Whereas commitment oriented HR is primarily focuses on competence building of its people. So, in the commitment oriented HR function, focus happens to be on training and development, on more democracy, focusing on the employee engagement. Their focus is certainly on the financial performance, but lot of enabling factors of organizational performance are considered to be employee morale, employee motivation, employee involvement, and through these means employee productivity is aimed at increasing. So, there are some common features in control oriented HR function, whether it is proactive downsizing or reactive downsizing. Legal considerations are paramount in the control oriented HR systems, whereas whether it is proactive or reactive downsizing. So, they consciously calculate the severance pay, legal requirement, regulations and communication with the employees at the time of downsizing is primarily about the extent of this process and timing of the layoff, etc. However, in the proactive downsizing, individual incentives are more, employee transfers are being used more often, and early retirement kind of methods are used more often. Whereas, when in the control oriented HR, reactive downsizing is taking place, the primary activities, the primary means of that process are job enlargement, meaning adding more number of job in the individual jobs, increasing the use of temporary employees. So, they ask permanent members to leave, and in place of those sometime limited number of the temporary workers are also employed. In a commitment oriented HR, whether it is proactive or reactive, we see some common factors. First factor is that in the commitment oriented HR systems, communication at the time of downsizing is primarily and predominantly on purpose and the process of this whole exercise. Fairness, transparency are the hallmarks of this system. So, organization explicitly looks to be emphasizing on the fairness and transparency of the process. So, management is more concerned about the fairness and transparency and not only explicit about the financial compulsions. Outplacement is also one of the proactive ways of helping employees, and that is seen in the commitment oriented HR system at the time of downsizing. These features being common in both the types of downsizing, in the proactive downsizing, commitment oriented HR focuses on innovation, automation, training and development. So, they try to find out ways of engaging people in by promoting more innovation. On when the automation is going on, they try to look at what are the other means and other avenues to engage, to keep the employees engaged and keep the employees with the organization. And of course, that after minimally required downsizing, they focus on the training and development of the existing employees. Through the training and development, they also try to decrease the extent of downsizing. In the reactive downsizing, in a commitment oriented people management based organization, cost reduction is certainly the most important challenge, and they deal with this challenge first by freezing the hiring instead of asking people to leave. They also look at the ways of enriching the job of the people. So, not only horizontal expansion of the job, but they also try to make the jobs enriched by adding more challenging, more interesting, more varied activities in individual jobs. There is a linkage between downsizing, organizational outcome and role of HR. Many studies have shown that after downsizing, people who are left with the organization are generally not able to perform to their highest level of competence. The primary reason for this situation is that looking at downsizing, they feel and looking at their own colleagues, and sometimes they are their friends, when they see them leaving the organization, their morale also comes down, they become more insecure, they also start looking for opportunities outside of the organization. So, downsizing generally do not result into the financial returns as expected at the planning, at the time of the planning about the downsizing. Nonetheless, there are few things which must be followed and which makes the downsizing less painful and more honorable process for the organization. that includes fair treatment, involvement of the employees and constant communication. The question is how and what HR function can do on the face of downsizing. HR function must examine ways of cutting cost without reducing the workforce. That is the first job of HR. That can be done by imposing pay freezes or pay cuts, temporary plant closure, mandatory vacation time, asking people to go on leave without pay, etc. These are the first step HR function must try when downsizing looks inevitable. Another thing HR can do is reducing the workforce without forced layoffs. So, they can invite for the voluntary layoff or voluntary retirement. That is done first by implementing the hiring freeze. So, in that way the natural attrition and early retirement naturally result into lowering of the headcount. Then HR can provide and take responsibility of providing clear, candid and inclusive communication. Why downsizing is important, why it is inevitable, what all steps we have taken to reduce the negative impact, what are the ways we wish to and we are trying to help employee to face the unpleasant or undesirable reality of downsizing. Giving voice before, during and after downsizing is also an important role of HR function. Naturally, all these roles can be enacted by HR only with cooperation of the top management and the supervisors. So, HR can facilitate the information flow in two ways, allowing employee to ask questions, air their concerns, because that gives idea to HR as well as to the top management to reduce the negative impact of downsizing as much as possible. And last but not the least, being fair and compassionate, and that should be demonstrated in their communication, in their policies, in the ways of implementation of the policies. Let us look at first why accidents occur. In order to understand safety, this is an important question. Accident occur because of the chance occurrence. Someone walking on the street and a big branch fall on his or her head. These are some things at times are beyond the assessment, beyond expectation. So, these are chance occurring, we can do very less about these things. Then accident occurs because of unsafe conditions, when safety schedules are not followed, when the safety climate is not prevalent. Safety schedule might be there, procedure might be laid down, but the general climate of the workplace might be such that people do not honor those conditions. Second reason for the accidents to occur are unsafe conditions, when we do not maintain the safety norms, when the proper boundary management is not done, proper safety procedure is not laid down, when people are not trained for the following safety norms. These are the second category of reasons of the accident. Third category of reasons for accident are unsafe act themselves. Many a time organization lay down the process, posters might be there on the wall, they might have been told about in the training, during the meetings or during the training, but still some people take these things lightly and that may cause accidents. So, that is the unsafe act. So, these are the primarily three reasons why accidents occur. The core process of safety management is about reducing the unsafe conditions, reducing the unsafe act and positive reinforcement. These three things can be done in multiple ways. Reducing unsafe conditions. How we can reduce the unsafe condition? The first is employers are the first line of defense. So, a systematic job hazard analysis must be carried out wherever some industrial activities are going on. Operational safety review must be done, procedure must be laid out, that documentation should be done, and that should be communicated properly and regularly to the employees. Third is personal protective equipment. Employees should be provided the equipment, helmets or the boundary or the rope or whatever is required that can ensure their safety while working on hazardous activities. Second category of processes of safety management are reducing unsafe act, and that can be done through screening. We can constantly watch out, the warnings must be there, but there has to be ways of screening the unsafe act by maybe video recording, by constantly watching the video recording or by any other means. It can also be done manually. That can also be done by people, employees within the organization. When there is a climate for safety, people keep reminding about the safety norms to each other. Systematic training inputs are also very important to ensure that people follow safety norms. Training does two things. Number one, it obviously makes people aware of the safety norms and it also tells them what are the ways of following the safety norms. Secondly, when employees receive the safety training, that also makes them understand the sincerity of the process, that also makes them communicate that organization is serious about following the safety norms. And third way is posters, incentives, etc. That is the another way of reducing unsafe acts. Safety management cannot be ensured just by following these two steps. There is also a huge scope of implementing positive reinforcement, of fostering the culture of safety. The positive reinforcement is done, that is by specifying the goals and targets and rewarding people who are meeting those goals and targets about safety norms. That can also be done by creating a supportive environment. So, the culture which is shared norms, values and beliefs, that is the space where safety must be talked about, that is where the safety management should be infused. And establishing the safety policy, what should be done with particular machine, what should be the protocol, and constantly communicating about it, what should be done at the time of accident, what should be done to prevent the accident. All these policies, when they are consciously laid out and communicated, that is the positive enforcement of fostering the culture of safety. All four stakeholders have important role to play in ensuring safety. Supervisor's role is very important in accident prevention, and most important, it is recognized across the literature, it is the one of the most important ways of preventing accident is supervisors daily walkthrough of workplace. When supervisor on a routine basis have a walkthrough, constantly observe, regularly observe people to whether they are following norms or not, whether the safety facilities, the safety norms and safety processes and the instruments required are in place, that is the first thing to ensure the employee safety. Second, employer has a very important role to play. It is the employer who spends money in ensuring that facilities are provided with required safety. First step towards this process is having recognition of the hazards, recognizing, doing the safety audit that helps organization to recognize where all safety can be breached, where are the places where safety is crucial. Employers also must be aware of the mandatory standards. Different countries have different standards. For example, OSHA is implemented in USA. In India, the Industrial Ministry releases a policy guidelines which gives the overview of the safety policy and also lists down the different regulations. So, these are the things which employer must be familiar to ensure the safety management. Third is examining the workplace condition. As supervisor has to do inspection in his or her workstation, employer should be doing the walkthrough or should be overseeing the overall workplace. Of course, employee has important role, they have to follow the safety norms, they have to follow the health norms without fear of punishment, and if they see some issue, when they see there is a scope of enhancing the safety management, they must proactively put forth these thoughts. They should proactively bring the notice of the supervisors and employers and managers towards these issues. And HRM has important role. HRM can have a safety department, safety desk independently, or it can have a digitized platform like SiteDoc is one platform. There are multiple platforms like this to for the safety management system. So, HRM has to manage the desk, safety office or the digital safety management system. Different interventions can be done for ensuring the safety, and HR is primarily responsible for these interventions. First is financial and non-financial incentives. Since incentive is the process which is implemented by HRM, of course in consultation with the top management, in consultation with the supervisors, but creating accountability by linking rewards and consequences to the performance of individuals and teams, that is the primarily implemented by HRM. It is done by providing both financial incentives and non-financial rewards and recognitions. Employee ownership of solution and learning. HR has a role in ensuring that employee take the ownership of the safety solutions and they keep learning the process. One method is found to be specifically relevant and useful is near miss program. Whenever there is an accident, that is reported and then inquiry takes place or the compensation is given, but every organization also has certain near miss situations where accident has not happened, but that could have happened, the possibility was very high. Those kind of incidences must be compiled and studied. The pattern should be identified in those, because that is where the intervention of HR can happen. If accident has happened, then that is a post hoc analysis, but these near miss program must be studied to proactively identify the stations, the workstations or the points or the processes where safety norms have to be developed or safety norms have to be followed more strongly. Leading with values. If something is part of the culture, naturally people follow it without much of hassle, without much of resistance. So, cultivating meaning, ensuring that employees must know where their work fits into the larger scheme of works, and when employees look at how their work, which otherwise looks part of a large job, when they see how their work fits into the overall value chain of the organization or overall workflow of the factory, they start taking their work seriously. They start finding meaning in their work. When people start finding meaning in their work, they become more open in accepting the norms, in innovation, in being more vigilant about the safety issues as well as other production related issues. Important observation at this stage is that safety and health of employees are interlinked. So, there is a study conducted by this group of scholars, it was published in McKinsey's Knowledge Center in 2018. It says that companies with superior organizational health, those that align most successfully around clear strategy, execute it well, and they renew themselves over time, also tend to have best safety records. So, in the companies in the top quartile, these authors have found the safety incidences are 6 times fewer in comparison to those which are in the bottom quartile, which have almost 3 times as many incidents leading to lost work time and lost production time, and also loss to the employees' health. So, health and safety are deeply connected. Now, we will look at workplace health related things and what is the role of HR in managing the employees' health. First point in managing employee health from the perspective of HR is that what are the sources of the health hazards. So, sources of the health hazard at workplace are chemical, industrial hygiene, if the production process involves some hazardous chemical that has a risk on the employee health, temperature extremes, if the workplace requires the much fluctuation of the temperature and that temperature is not very different from the normal temperature of that place. Biohazard, the biohazards at workplace also pose a threat, and ergonomic hazards. In the software companies or in the organizations where people have to work on the system, on a computer system for long hours, ergonomics hazards are becoming very prominent, because that the prolonged ergonomic hazards and not following the norms result into severe problems, chronic problems related to backbone or digestion or many other things. For preventing the health hazard, HRM function in India must be aware of some of the norms, some of the regulations. One document is a comprehensive one which gives the complete idea about the national policy on safety, health and environment. That link is given, that gives the policy guidelines. It also enumerates the different acts which are having the provisions related to health hazards. For example, Factories Act 1948, Dock Workers Act, Indian Mines Act is also there, Indian Boiler Act. These are multiple acts which talks about how to prevent health hazard in that particular factory or on those categories of the factories. National Occupational Safety and Health Supervision and Administration, there is administrative body which ensures the inspection, which ensures that organizations follow these norms. Then there are also tripartite OSH committees, Indian Labour Conference, Committee in Docks and Mines. These are the bodies which constantly watch out for organizations whether they are following the safety norms or not. Time to time these bodies also release some norms, they also release some guidelines, and they give us idea what are the norms to be followed about the safety at workplace. Now, we will look at employee health, particularly the mental health, and one issue in the mental health related thing are alcoholism and substance abuse. Why this is this such a big issue which should be part of this lecture? Yes, recent example, recent means in 2018, Punjab government made it mandatory that drug testing will be done for at the time of recruitment, also at the regular interval of its all government employees, and this decision was welcomed by all sections. So, this tells about the amount of problem. India, according to one response given in the Indian Parliament, India has witnessed about 455% increase in the drug hauls between these 2011 to 2013. As per the UN estimate, India has 10 million drug abusers. To give you a perspective, what is the 10 million means? Whole of the IT industry, which is such a important industry for India, which earns highest revenue through exports, also employs about 5 million people. So, you can imagine that 10 million people in overall industry in whole of India, they are the drug abusers. Drug abusers actually suffer from severe withdrawal symptoms, confusion, aggression, poor memory, poor decision making. These all things make the workplace toxic. As a result of that, many companies in IT and BPO sectors particularly have started to mandate drug abuse screening as part of the background screening as well as part of the regular screening for their employees. A randomized testing procedure is found to be most effective in managing and checking the substance abuse at workplace. HRM has to form the drug free workplace policy. So, different organizations have to form different policies. Supervisors should be trained about how to deal the drug abuse of their team members, of their employees. Employee must be educated about the hazardous effects of the drug abuse and how they can prevent from that, and employee assistance program. If someone gets habitual of this drug abuse, then how that person can be helped in getting out of that situation, getting out of that problem. When there is a policy, they can HR can control the substance abuse at workplace in a much better way. Generally, the first step in addressing and dealing with the substance abuse by employee is ensuring that by communicating about the discipline required. If person still is not able to follow the discipline, is constantly breaching that discipline, then in-house counseling should be done. If in-house counseling also does not help in addressing that problem in that person, he should be referred or she should be referred to the outside agency, and when even the person do not address this problem with the help of the outside agency, then many time organizations have to discharge these kind of employees. Now, we will talk about the mental illness or mental ailment, which are primarily seen at workplace in the form of stress, burnout, anxiety and depression. The causes of these stress can be internal to the organization as well, like top management level. If employees see unethical behavior, they focus on the short term bottom line, even at the cost of the business long term health and employee. Inconsistent policies, many workers become party to or become victim of unethical practices, and that may cause stress, anxiety. Because of the poor communication, workplace incivility, political work environment, that also can cause the stress. Employee level, the inability, if employee themselves are unable to cope with the changes, and issue related to the prestige or personal prestige or issue of the family incivility, family responsibility, personal health, these are the reasons why there can be a suffering in the organizations which result into stress, anxiety or maybe depression. First we will look at stress. There are multiple reasons and causes of stress, which are related to physical environment, the role conflict, role ambiguity at workplace, job control, the quantity of work, the means the job, the load itself can be very heavy for a person to carry forward, cognitive demand, when the job demands high level of cognitive skill and person is not having that, shift work. These are some of the predominant job stressors. Job stressors result into acute reaction at the psychological, physiological and behavioral level, but different people show different kinds and different levels of acute reaction, and that happens because of the individual factors. People are different. So, the age, gender, marital status, tenure of the job, title of the job, personality type, self esteem, these are the factors which affect how job stressor will result into acute reactions. There are some non work factors as well, which are like family or buffer factor like social support, supervisor, co-worker and family relationships. These factors also affect how job stressors result into acute reactions, and when these acute reactions are not addressed for the long time, that result into illness, which are work related disability or physician diagnosed problems. Unaddressed stress for long time becomes burnout. In the burnout, there are three characteristics: emotional exhaustion, cynicism and professional inefficacy. Emotional exhaustion means feeling of being overwhelmed, feeling of not having energy to deal with even the simple problems at work. Cynicism means lack of hope and lack of enthusiasm. People not hopeful about their own capabilities and the own success as well as organizational capability and organizational success. Then comes professional inefficacy, which is part of the burnout. That means people do not have the belief in their own capability. So, they think that they are not capable of handling the situations at work. These are the three symptoms of burnout, and that is the result of unaddressed long stress related issues. Managers can do different things, and HR has an important role in facilitating these interventions. First are the primary interventions, means HR need to look at the source of these issues. So, they can look at the supervisory practice, whether the supervisor of the employee is well behaved or there should not be any abusive supervision, that has to be checked by HR. Expansion of the promotion and career ladder, when people feel a sense of plateau, sense of being stuck in the job, that naturally result into stress. So, there can be some avenues, the HR can help in creating and identifying those avenues where people can expand their promotion and their career ladder. Installing the flexible work schedule, many a time it is not important for person to show up at a particular time and still he or she can complete his or her job. Identifying those points and helping in implementing the flexible work schedule and increasing worker autonomy, helping employees to decide about their things, about the course of their action, and training supervisors how they can do more delegation to their employees, how they can do the delegation more effectively to their team members. These are some of the primary prevention, because they treat the very core of stress. Then there are some secondary preventions as well. If primary preventions are not taken or are not sufficient or cannot be taken, then stress is inevitable, and that requires secondary prevention, which is some processes, some interventions of the stress release. There are three examples: progressive muscle relaxation, stress inoculation by going for the outing or taking the retreat, or following some yoga and mindfulness training. assertiveness training, conflict handling training. These things can help people to address the stress related issues. Tertiary prevention is when stress reaches beyond a limit of being affected by secondary prevention, that requires hospitalization, psychotherapy, counseling, and if person is suffering from the substance abuse, then requires a specific counseling for that. Depression and other mental health issues have to be taken seriously. It matters a lot. In 2017, President of India Shri Ramnath Kovind ji asserted that India was facing a possible mental health epidemic. So, because a study revealed that 14% of India's population is suffering from mental ailment, and that includes more than 45 million suffering from depressive disorder and 49 million from anxiety disorder. That is a very big number, and India being a youth population is also has become a suicide capital of the world in the category between 18 to 28 years. That is also a result of poor mental health. By the way, world over, number of suicide have crossed the total number of deaths caused due to terror, war and accidents together, and suicide are primarily reasons of lack of mental health. So, these are very important issues, and organizations also suffer because of these issues, because they are prevalent in society. What is prevalent in society naturally will affect organization as well, because people come from the society only. Business impact, if it is calculated in the US, happens to be ranging any figure between 36 billion to 50 billion due to performance issues arising out of the mental disorders. Major issues about dealing with the mental disorder are lack of knowledge, managerial attitude, managerial support, actually lack of managerial support, and lack of resources. Lack of knowledge is the first reason why mental health can become unmanageable problem. That is about unawareness, that is about supervisors and managers are not aware that mental health issues are real, they have to be handled and they can be handled. So, that awareness has to be there, and that is the first way, that is the first issue. The second issue is managerial attitude. Many times supervisors or managers keep denying that there is any issue with them or with their people. There is also a problem of discrimination. Many a time managers discriminate people at workplace who are having or who have had mental health related issue. That is very serious issue. If someone has suffered some mental health issue and person has taken treatment, it is like any other ailment. If you are treated, if you are free from it, you are free from it. There should not be any stigmatization because of that. But many times manager have this, they continue to have this attitude of discrimination. That is a very important issue. Managerial support, they may not deny it, they may not discriminate, but they are not trained. They do not have the necessary skill to support these kind of people. Supporting in the diagnosis, supporting when person returns to work, and managing the attendance when person is absent due to mental health, when the person comes back, how do you handle the person's return to work or attendance management, how do you accommodate the person when person is taking treatment for the mental health, how you accommodate the job of that person within the team. These kind of management supports are required, and many time managers do not have a skill to support these things. Many time organizations do not have resources, they are so much under pressure in performance that in spite of the good intentions, managers do not have time or resources, they cannot let person leave for the treatment, even if it is recommended by the doctors, but they are so much under pressure for the performance that they have to keep ignoring it. So, HR has to take 4 steps to address the mental health related issues. First is becoming aware of the mental health issue. Many organizations have started doing the surveys to look at the mental health. Many organizations have started using indirect data to check the status of mental health of its employees. That is the first step. Second is developing action response, that involves encouraging employees to seek help if needed. So, communicating people that it is okay to have stress, anxiety, depression, it may not be okay, but it is natural in the modern lifestyle. So, it is fine, it is okay to express that, it is okay to tell that they have an issue, they have a challenge. Development of the employee assistance program, how you can handle the person internally. So, many organizations have started setting up the counseling desk, counseling helpline, 24-hour helpline for people to get in touch with these help system and get help in addressing these problems. Additional support in work environment. So, HR has to clarify, they need to make the policy how supervisors and team members need to and can extend their support to the people who are suffering from mental health related issues. Adjusting the style of supervision, sometimes supervisor training is required on how the supervisors can address the mental health related issues of their team members, and of course sensitizing of everybody is required, so that if they see someone having this kind of challenge in their team, they behave appropriately. Third thing HR need to do is managing the response, managing the effect of redistribution of work. So, they need to tell, they need to come up with the policy, they need to train people how they can manage the effects of redistribution of work, which inevitably happens if someone leaves the workplace or someone has to go for the leave or because of mental health or any other issue. How do you divide that person's work in the team? That training and that input should be given by the HR. Balancing and helping the employee in keeping and maintaining confidentiality, that is a kind of a twin goal, how to maintain the confidentiality as well as extending the help to the people who need that help. So, they need to do the boundary management, who can know about it, who need not know about it, how to maintain the confidentiality, and still how to hold a conversation about that person amongst the people who are aware of that issue. Fourth is very important step, that is about reflection of the exercise. When one policy is formed, when it is recognized, when the development of action plan is done, that is never final. Organization and HR has to facilitate that process. They need to engage in the reflection, they need to engage in what are the cases which took place about these issues, substance abuse or mental health related issues in their organization, how they were handled, what else can be done, what else supervisors can do, what else HR can do, what can be done to prevent these things, what can be done to proactively prevent these things. All these things can be identified only if HR reflects on these issues, they engage on the reflection of these issues. So, fourth step is very important in keep developing the policy and procedure about dealing these issues.